Hi Year 5, I hope you all had a lovely half term and enjoying the sunshine. We're starting back up this week and same as before, we're going to have a video a day ready for maths and then an activity for you to do. So to start things off, your fluency, just to get your brains warmed up, is over on Purple Mash and it's just a timetable activity. So please feel free to go and do that now or you can do it at the end. This week we're starting to look at measurement, so lots of different units of measure. So the first thing I want you to do is pause the video and write down, maybe in a brainstorm, of as many units of measure that you can think of. There's lots. Hopefully you've thought of lots and lots. We've got centimetres, millimetres, grams, kilometres, time. I'd love to see all the ones that you've come up with, so please send them into the email address and I can see how many you've got. Today though, we are concentrating on centimetres, millimetres and metres. Okay, we're going to touch on kilometres as well. The first one we're going to talk about is a metre. So here's the word metre. Now a metre is 100 centimetres. Things that you might measure in metres might be your height. So I am 1.5 metres. The width of your doorways at home are approximately 1 metre. Or you might measure, so something like the width of the playground might be something that we measure in metres. Okay, it's 100 centimetres. Try and picture the metre stick that we have in school. Next up, we're going to talk about a centimetre. Okay, so a centimetre is written like this, or you might see it abbreviated like this, cm. That's a centimetre. Now in centimetre, we can see we've got the prefix cent. And we've also got that root word of metre that we were just talking about, okay? So a centimetre is much smaller than a metre, okay? 1 metre is 100 centimetres. Now, roughly, the width of your fingernail will be 1 centimetre, okay? So 100 of those are in 1 metre. Now, to help us remember this, the prefix cent actually means hundredth. And we see this word, this prefix cent, in lots of words meaning 100. So think of century, or per cent has got the cent in it, so that's per 100. Okay, so centimetres are quite small. They're 100 times smaller than a metre, and there's 100 of them in our metre. It's roughly that wide. Okay, so let's think about some things that we might measure in centimetres. We could do our height in centimetres. We could measure the width of a book in centimetres, or something, quite small. Okay, much bigger things we're going to be thinking about in metres. Next one is millimetres. So again, in the word millimetre, that's the whole word, or we can abbreviate it to mm. So that's a unit of measure for distance and it's millimetres. We can see that root word again, metre, and this time our prefix is milli. Now that means thousandths, okay? So let's think of millennium, okay? That's 1,000 years. So millimetre, there are actually 1,000 millimetres in a metre. Okay, a millimetre is 1,000th of a metre. Compared to centimetres, in 1 centimetre, there are 10 millimetres. So if you've got a ruler at home, you could be having a look at this. Now, what would we measure in millimetres? It would have to be something quite small. If you've got a bank card at home, the width of this tiny bit here, the edge, is probably about roughly 1 millimetre, okay, or 10 pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. That's the measurement of 1 millimetre. It's a tiny, tiny measurement, okay? So things that we would measure in millimetres might be a pen or a pencil, okay? You could also do that in centimetres, but millimetres are more accurate because they're much, much smaller. The last one we're looking at today is a kilometre. Now this one should be at the top really because it's our biggest measurement. So again, we have our root word of metre, and then we have this word kilo. So our prefix is kilo. Now, millimetre meant thousandth, okay, so part of 1,000th, even smaller. Think about our decimal places. Kilo means thousand, Okay, so really, really big we're thinking about now. You might have also heard kilogram, so that's 1,000 grams. So if you're thinking about kilometre, hopefully you can guess that a kilometre, 1 kilometre, it's the same thing, is the same as 1,000 metres. Okay, so let's think about the sorts of things that we would measure in kilometres. That's a really, really big distance. Think about the width of your doorway or our metre stick. We're thinking of 1,000 of those. It's a massive, massive measurement. So things that you would normally do in kilometres is distance. So for example, if I went for a 5-kilometre run this morning, or we might measure the distance between two places and distances in a journey. So for example, the distance between Walsall and Birmingham is approximately 17 kilometres. Okay, it's a really, really big measurement. Now I want you to have a go at pausing the video and I want you to see if you can select the correct measurements for these things. So what would be the best unit of measurement for measuring the width of the playground, measuring a pencil, so the length of a pencil, the length or width of a rubber, and the distance from your house to school. Okay, so have a go at those and then we'll go through them. Let's start with the rubber. So the rubber is our smallest thing to measure, so we would use our smallest unit of measurement. So hopefully you remember that's our millimetre. We write that by doing mm. Okay, it would be accurate in millimetres. The next biggest object is our pencil. So the best way to measure that would probably be in centimetres. So that's cm. The next biggest would be the width or the length of the playground. So this would be one that we would measure in metres. We just use the m for that one. And then the last one is the biggest distance from home to school, and that's because it's such a big distance, we would use kilometres, so km. Now these two we would have on a ruler. The metre, we've got a metre stick. And for a kilometre, we can you can track that in a few ways. With technology now, you can do that on Google Maps, so perhaps you could have a go and look at the distance from your house to school and let me know. Or you've got this, it's like it's called a trundle wheel, and you go along the floor and it counts up how many kilometres that you've been. So there's lots of ways to measure those. That's it, a nice easy start for our first lesson back after half term. Your activity today is on Purple Mash, and don't forget to do those times tables as well. Any problems or any work from today, please email it to us on our Year 5 email address, which is coming up, or post on the class blog. Okay, good luck and I shall see you tomorrow.